Hello, guys. Welcome to Talking Hawks mid-season draft episode. Here with Daz. I'm Chris. How are you, Daz?
Mate, I'm going well, thank you. It's a busy time of the year, the mid-season draft. Usually, we're just preparing for the end of season one, but now with the innovation, if you will, I think this is already the third mid-season draft. Where does the time go? But the Hawks, mate, they've got an early pick 6. So looking forward to getting stuck into it, into who we could take or who we should take, and all of that. So fingers crossed, everyone enjoys, and of course, we want comments letting us know what they think.
And after the result on the weekend, we are desperately looking for some good news, and hopefully that comes in this mid-season draft. All right, so we'll get right into it, and I'll just get you to quickly run through the mid-season draft and how it works. We have pick 6, so yeah, I'll let you run with that.
Yep, so in a nutshell, there are two ways that you can get a pick in the mid-season draft, and that is if a player retires. You think of Josh Caddy from Richmond this year who pulled the pin, or Jordan Roughhead for the Pies to give them a second spot. So if a player retires before the mid-season draft, you get a pick because that opens up a spot on your list. Or if you put a player on the long-term injury list in which they won't play for the rest of the season. So the Hawks have got a pick, which is great because we can have a look at some homegrown talent, hopefully, maybe, or we can look at some talent. Most of the picks, I think, in a consensus way for the Hawks are going to be in Victoria, although we've got a couple of interstate boys to look at. And there's still some conjecture on whether we have 1 or 2 picks, mate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly is. So I think we've got Brockman would be our ideal one to go on that long-term injury list. And I think it makes sense to do it even if we don't use our second pick. Do you agree?
Not necessarily. Dependent on that second pick would have to be a player that we only put on a 6-month contract. So players can nominate 6 or 18 months. Now, they don't get to use their financial terms anymore because we were so good in getting Jai. The AFL had to change the rules. So that's how good we're going. But putting Brocky on the long-term injury list, we could get someone else in on a 6-month contract. I don't really see the downside. The problem that the Hawks might have is there's probably 2 positional needs at the moment, and that would be centre-half back for the future, help develop them really quickly, or a ruckman. Most of the good ruckmen, or I think the top 3 or 4 ruckmen, are going to be gone off the list before our second pick. So I could understand the Hawks doing it and then not using their pick. That's absolutely an option. But if they think there's a talent there that we can find, I should say, sorry about that, a talent that we can find, I think we should absolutely go for it. So I agree with you. I don't really see much of a downside, but we'll wait and see.
And just to clarify, I think we've got up until the end of working day on Tuesday, is it? 5 o'clock, is it? 6 o'clock? 5 o'clock. Alrighty. All right. So you've pretty much touched on it there. Our priority as far as a mid-forward defender or ruck, and probably short-term and long-term fixes. Like that ruck position we're trying to fill is a short-term fix. Is it a priority? I don't see it as a priority. I think we just push through and take the best talent available and look at long-term prospects.
Yeah, well, Reeves looks like he's only a week or 2 away. We know Max Lynch has had probably the unluckiest start at a second club that you can possibly have. So whilst I do understand that it is a quick fix that we need to desperately get a ruckman in, I can understand fans thinking that. But it is a very ruck-dominant thing, the mid-season draft. We look at last year, we were talking up getting Ned Moyle in for such a long time, and Aiden Begg went in the draft. Alex Murkov went to Carlton, who's on the precipice of getting a game. So it can be a really ruck-dominant thing. 7 went in last year's mid-season draft. So Hawks fans, I can understand where you're coming from. But if Reeves is nearly right to go and Lynch is recovered from concussion, I agree with you. I don't think we take another ruckman. I think we go to the draft at the end of the year and we take one, kind of like Geelong did with Toby Conway and their recent debutant in Shannon Neal. Take one in the 2nd or 3rd round and go from there.
Fair call. But if by some miracle one of those top 3 ruckmen are available at our first pick, does that change your opinion?
Yeah, it really does, and we'll go through a few of those prospects in a minute. And this is one of those reasons why list management is so important. We've seen North; they've had a few, turn their back. Well, not turn their back, but depart the club. And we've picked up Mark Finnegan, who's really close with Mark McKenzie, which will be a good pickup. I know some Hawks fans have been up in arms about North, but you only leave your job and walk into another one when you're not allowed to do your job properly. So let's think about that before we jump to any conclusions. So I'm glad I'm not the one making the final decision, but I think the Hawks have got a plan and they'll stick to it no matter what.
Yep, beautiful. And what, in your opinion, is their plan?
I think that, The plan kind of revolves around when you're at pick 6. We saw it when we were talking about Josh Ward. You kind of need to know who's going before these guys. So you kind of need to know, is anyone going to get in the way before us? Now, if West Coast do what I think West Coast are going to do, and that's take the best kid in the mid-season draft, then they'll go with Jai Cully. Now, he's a midfielder, so that doesn't bother us at all. But it's what North do at pick 2. Now, they've got, in my mind, 2 options. Now, their ruck stocks are fine with Goldstein, Sherry, Callum Coleman-Jones, and Jacob Edwards, who they took with number 1. Do they go key forward or key back? Now, the best key back in the draft is ironically a Box Hill boy, who we'll talk about in a tick. The best centre-half forward in this mid-season draft is Wade Dirksen from Peel Thunder. So, if the Hawks do lose their homegrown talent at Box Hill, I think we go ruckman. But if he's still there, I think we go centre half back. But weirdly enough, we've kind of got to cheer on North to again make a wrong decision.
Yes, they did that with Phillips, was it? All right. So do we want to roll through our list, or your list, sorry, of who we should take? You just mentioned that player who's at Box Hill, James Blanck, however you want to say it.
Well, when he gets drafted, we'll find out. He's exactly right. Once he's a Hawk. So, yeah, 19 years old. He's got a big body. We know Denver is coming along, and yeah, we know Frost is 29. I think at round 1 next year. Kyle Hartigan is clearly not in the best 22 because we've come up against some monster forwards, and he hasn't been included. So we know Hartigan's taking on more of a mentorship role. But who's going to be the next key backman in our next premiership team? Now, some can say Frost. I don't disagree with you there. But this mid-season draft is a chance to get 6 months of extra development into a player. Now, we wanted to do that with Jai last year because, look, Jai's a star, and we've seen that. But the mid-season draft, it really is a key position system. It's to get 6 extra months in. Hey, have you got that little spark? Do you? Yep, awesome. And James has been under the radar at Box Hill. And personally, I think if all the ruckmen are still on the board, which I project that they will be, I do think we turn our back on the ruckman and we take James. And I think he'd fit in well at the Hawks. I don't think we'd see him this year. He'd continue to apply his trade, but he would have some security in knowing there's a spot on the list for him.
And I think, and if it's anything Hawthorn's had to do with it, he's nominated for the 18-month contract. Is that correct?
I believe so. He has. I think there's 5 players that are expected to go in the first round that have nominated, and I think that's so they can get to the clubs that have talked to them the most, and those that might have a bit extra room in the salary cap. Not that you can get extra money like we talked about with Jai, but the teams that have got a little bit of money in the salary cap that they can fit them in for a longer period of time. So I believe so.
Yep, beautiful. I've watched him a little bit at Box Hill this year, and he does look like he's got a lot of potential.
Plays back shoulder really well. We've talked about Denver and the fact that he's had to do that, but Jacob Wiedering, Stephen May, we've talked about all these great backmen. What can they do? They can play back shoulder and stop their opponent, and considering all the key forwards are seemingly back in the AFL, you've got to be able to stop your opponent, so a big tick there.
Yep, beautiful. All right, who's next on your list, mate?
So the former Brisbane ruckman Connor Ballenden. Now this is one that I think's been talked about in the media quite a lot, that we're linked to him. I'm pretty sure we've spoken to him. 203 centimeters, 23 years old. He's playing for the Eagles in the Waffle, and he's got that big senior experience. So if Reeves or Lynch, if we really are worried about their health, he is the type that we can plug in, and he can probably play straight away with his AFL experience and the fact that he was on Brisbane's list, I think, for 3 years. Tells me that if the Hawks need a solution right now, which you could argue during the Gold Coast game we do, but we need to look at who might play this week, he is the ready-made ruckman that we could pick up, and I don't think any club in the first 5 picks will get him, so he'll definitely be there, and I think it's a toss-up between him and James. Yep,
beautiful. Have you got a preference out of the 2?
I still think the centre half back's more important for us than a ruckman right now. I think it'll be better for us to use a 2nd or 3rd round pick on a ruckman than it would be on a centre half back.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if we do recruit him then and we get our 3 ruckman back, he's going to be sitting at 4th ruckman playing at Box Hill.
Yeah, exactly right. And then someone could come along and steal him.
Fill that hole for us straight away and get some good experience. All right. Next on your list, mate?
Yeah, so we're going to go... Oh, excuse me. So we're going to go to Dandenong Stingrays. We're going to go to Max Ramsden. He is 19 years old. He is the best ruckman in the NAB League, and this man covers the ground spectacularly. You're talking aerobic athlete. He is your man, and he's bullying people in the NAB League, which is really good to see. And there were high hopes on him coming into the draft, but we know what's happened with such a COVID-affected draft. Many players are falling through the cracks, and he's definitely one of them. Takes Ruckman a bit longer to develop. He would be a longer-term prospect. So if Reeves and Lynch are okay, maybe we do take on a Max Ramsden and get the 6 months into him and see where we're at from there. So he's probably the diamond, maybe the one that's not being talked about enough when it comes to the Hawks. But yeah, I wouldn't be disappointed if we took Max at all. He looks a gun, and I'd look forward to seeing what he does, because he'll either go to us or I think he'll go to Port Adelaide, who have the pick after us.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting a Project Ruckman. Once McAvoy's gone, it makes sense to have one on the list, like you said. Whether someone's good enough and available, it makes more sense to take at the second pick, not our first pick. But
he ain't going to be there at the second pick, I can guarantee you.
Yeah. All right. You've got Jacob Dawson there as well.
So he's the epitome of the second round pick diamond. So if we put Tyler Brockman on the long-term injury list and we want someone in the second round of the mid-season draft is best available talent. Jacob Dawson is the best player in the VFL. He is leading the Coaches Award. We've seen Clayton Oliver leading it currently in the AFL. He's leading it by 18 votes.
Wow.
Currently. Yeah, this man is dominating at Southport, finding the ball at will. Yes, I know the Hawks have got plenty of midfielders, but this notion that that the Hawks are lacking a bit of talent, I agree with. What's happening with Jimmy Warple at the end of the year, I don't know. If we can get Dawson in and more competition for spots, the better off we'll be. I know Josh Ward's waiting in the wings, but if we do go with a second-round pick, we're going to want to pick a diamond, and I'm a big fan, I know you are too, mate, of picking the best from the state league. Sometimes taking a footballer is better than taking an athlete, and he's already got experience with his time at the Gold Coast Suns.
Yep, beautiful. Yeah, I like that pick there. Did we miss Reidy?
We did the local boy. So he's the last ruckman, and no, that's okay, mate. It's Frankston VFL, Liam Reidy. So he reminds me a little bit of how Darcy Cameron's been playing in the last month. He's a good tap ruckman. I don't think we could call him great in that department, but he's a good tap ruckman. Frankston are in really, really good form, but he's averaging 4.5 tackles a week in the last 5 games. Now, we've noted that Ned Reeves is a ruckman that can tackle, and we've loved him for that. Liam Reidy would be in the same boat. And again, with McAvoy retiring, we do need a ruck. By the time we put our list together at the end of 2022, we are going to need a third ruckman on there. And if we do think that Reeves and Lynch can get through the rest of the year and it's up to Ramsden or Reidy, we shouldn't be too disappointed with either. Personally, I think Ramsden is ahead of Reidy, but if we're worried about Ned Reeves' health or his body and we need another aerobic ruckman, we need another ruckman who can put pressure on around the ground and move quite nicely, Reidy would be the option.
Yeah, it's not a bad ploy, I guess, with Reeves' shoulder injury. That could go at any stage again. We've seen what's happening with Max Lynch and his concussions. He could only be a few more concussions away from sort of calling his career almost at this stage.
Look at Paddy McCartan. It took him so long to get back, and I think he's had concussions. He's been stung by a bee. I don't know what he's done in the off season to deserve this bad luck, but surely it's got to turn.
Yeah, but he's due for some good luck, and let's hope we get that, and he can stay fit and healthy on our list. All right, so we can pretty much wrap it up, mate. And in conclusion, first pick, you are taking who?
James Blanck.
Yep, I agree. Second preference, if we don't get him?
Max Ramsden.
And, and then you've got Jacob Dawson for our second pick if we use it.
Yep, I think so. And I think if the Hawks do put Brocky on the long-term injury list again with a shoulder, we don't necessarily need to use that pick. I think 2 picks in last year's mid-season draft weren't used at all. So if there's a talented guy there that we want to pick up, we'll go for it. If not, then we leave it as it is. But I think that we'll go to bed tomorrow night or Tuesday night, and we'll see that the Hawks have only got 1 pick. But if we do have a second, Dawson would be that sort of option who might be a diamond in the rough to put some pressure on the midfielders we've already got.
Beautiful, mate. Well, that pretty much concludes it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you've got any questions, post it in the comments. We'll try and answer your questions. Hopefully that's a little bit of an update before the draft happens, and we'll see how accurate Daz is. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in the show.
Mate, absolutely. Reputation on the line here, so fingers crossed the Hawks do right by me.
Awesome. Alrighty. Thanks for joining us, guys.